Welcome to You're in Good Hands, the podcast where we dive into everything urology. Leading-edge treatments, education on a variety of topics, and expert insights to keep you informed and healthy. Brought to you by the Advanced Urology Institute of Georgia, where innovation meets compassionate care. Because when it comes to your health, you're always in good hands. As always, the information discussed today is purely informative and does not constitute medical advice. Okay, ready to dive into something a little different. Today we're tackling fecal incontinence.
You might not think urology, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's more common than people realize, and we see it pretty often, especially as we age.
It affects millions, especially women. But the good news is it's treatable. We're going to explore a pretty cutting-edge solution.
It's true. This is one of those things people just don't like to talk about.
Yeah.
There's so much, embarrassment and shame around it. A lot of people suffer in silence. But the key is it's a medical condition. And like any medical condition, there's no shame in seeking help.
Absolutely. So let's start with the basics. What is fecal incontinence?
Well, simply put, it's the inability to control your bowel movements.
Okay.
And that can range, from occasional leakage to a complete loss of control in severe cases.
And we talked about the impact it can have on someone's life. That could be huge, right?
It's huge. Yes, socially, emotionally, it can lead to isolation, anxiety, even depression. It really affects your whole life.
Definitely not just a physical issue.
Oh, absolutely not.
So what causes this to happen in the first place?
Well, often it boils down to a disruption in the communication between the brain and the muscles that, control your bowel function.
Okay.
Childbirth, surgery, or even aging can weaken those muscles or damage the nerves that are responsible for sending those signals.
I see. So there are a lot of potential culprits. And our sources mention diabetes and multiple sclerosis specifically. How do those conditions play a role?
Yeah, those are good examples. So conditions like diabetes and MS can cause nerve damage, and that nerve damage disrupts the signals between the brain and the bowels, and that leads to incontinence. And then you have things like chronic constipation or diarrhea, which put a strain on those muscles over time, and that can weaken them.
Makes them weaker and makes control tougher.
Exactly.
Okay, so we see a lot of different factors can contribute to this problem. Now, I know we're going to talk about an exciting treatment option, sacral neuromodulation, but before we get to that, what should someone do if they think they might have fecal incontinence? What's the first step they should take?
The most important thing is don't wait to suffer in silence. Talk to your doctor.
Okay.
Or even better, consult with a specialist. Advanced Urology of Georgia actually has a specialized team. And a lot of people wouldn't think to see urology for this, but we actually work closely with gastroenterology to provide really comprehensive care for this.
That's good to know. So how is fecal incontinence diagnosed?
Well, it starts with a thorough medical history, a physical exam. The doctor will ask about your symptoms, any other medical conditions you have, your lifestyle. And then depending on that initial assessment, there are several tests that can help pinpoint the cause and how severe it is.
So it's not one size fits all. It's really about understanding the individual situation.
It really is, yeah.
What kinds of tests are we talking about?
One common test is called anorectal manometry. It measures the strength and coordination of those muscles in the rectum and anus. So this helps determine if muscle weakness is contributing to the incontinence. Another one is an endoanal ultrasound. Uses sound waves to create images of the anal sphincter muscles. Those are the muscles responsible for keeping the anus closed.
Okay, so those tests help paint a clearer picture of what's going on structurally, functionally.
Exactly.
And then you can start exploring treatment options.
Exactly.
So the good news is there's a range of options.
Yes, there are.
And it really depends on the individual case.
It does.
Some people might find relief with just simple lifestyle and dietary changes, and we'll talk about those in a bit. But what about when those simpler approaches aren't enough? What are the more advanced options?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. One of the most exciting advancements is sacral neuromodulation, or SNM, and it's a minimally invasive procedure. And it's honestly life-changing for many people struggling with fecal incontinence. In fact, Advanced Urology of Georgia was awarded multiple Medtronic Centers of Excellence for InterStim, which is the device we use for SNM in fecal incontinence.
Wow. Center of Excellence. That's a testament to the expertise at Advanced Urology of Georgia.
It is.
I've heard this procedure described as like a pacemaker for the bowels.
Yeah.
Could you explain how that works?
That's a really good analogy. Essentially, SNM involved implanting a small device. It sends gentle electrical impulses to the sacral nerves.
Okay.
And these nerves play a key role in controlling bowel function.
So it's helping to regulate that communication between the brain and the bowels.
That's exactly what it's doing. Sometimes those communication lines get a little fuzzy.
Yeah.
And S&M helps clarify those signals, improving bowel control and reducing those accidental leaks.
That sounds incredibly promising. So for someone considering S&M, walk us through the procedure. What does it actually involve?
Well, it's a two-stage process. First, there's a trial phase. And during this phase, a temporary electrode is placed near those sacral nerves. Those are located near the tailbone.
Okay.
And that electrode is connected to an external stimulator that you wear for a few weeks.
So it's like a test drive. You're seeing if it's a good fit.
Exactly.
Makes sense. And then if the trial goes well, what's next?
Well, if the trial is successful, meaning the patient sees significant improvement in their symptoms, then we move on to the permanent implantation stage. And that's a fairly minor outpatient procedure. The device itself is small, about the size of a silver dollar. It's implanted under the skin in the lower back near those sacral nerves. And the best part, no overnight hospital stay.
So not a major surgery. That's really good. What about after the device is implanted? Are we done, or are there adjustments that need to be made?
One of the great things about S&M is that it's adjustable, so you'll have follow-up appointments and we can fine-tune the settings to optimize the therapy for your individual need.
It's not one size fits all. It's about finding what works for each person.
Exactly. We want to make sure patients are getting the absolute most out of their treatment.
That makes a lot of sense. So I know every medical procedure has its potential risks and benefits.
Of course.
What can you tell us about that for S&M?
Well, you're right. It's important to be aware of both. The potential benefits are remarkable, but like any procedure, there are potential risks as well.
Right.
Some patients might have some discomfort, irritation at the implant site, but these are usually temporary.
Nothing too major, it sounds like.
Right. And the good news is they're usually manageable. Infection is a possibility. It's rare, but it's something we monitor really closely. And then in very rare cases, the device itself could malfunction, but it can be adjusted or replaced if needed. And it's also worth noting that the device is reversible, So if for any reason the patient decides they don't want it anymore, it can be removed.
Okay, so there's flexibility there. Weighing those benefits and risks, who would you say is a good candidate for S&M?
It's particularly beneficial for folks who haven't had success with other treatments, especially if their incontinence is related to nerve dysfunction.
So not the first line of defense, but a great option when other things haven't worked.
You got it. But it all starts with a thorough evaluation by a specialist.
Like the team at Advanced Urology of Georgia.
Exactly. They can determine if S&M is right for you.
Okay, this has been so informative. We've covered a lot of ground, but before we wrap up part one of our deep dive key takeaways, what do you want our listeners to remember about fecal incontinence and S&M?
First and foremost, it's common, it's treatable, and there's no shame in getting help.
That's so important.
Early diagnosis is crucial. And there are lots of treatment options available, ranging from lifestyle changes to more advanced procedures like S&M.
That's a powerful message. Don't let embarrassment keep you from seeking help and potentially transforming your life. We'll be back in part 2 to delve even deeper into this groundbreaking treatment and what it could mean for you or someone you know.
Welcome back to our deep dive. We're talking all about fecal incontinence, and as we've said, like any medical condition, there are treatment options available.
Exactly. And as we learned in part 1, S&M, that sacral neuromodulation can really be a game changer.
It's a fascinating approach, really. It just goes to show how interconnected our bodies are. By stimulating those sacral nerves, you can influence bowel function and really improve people's lives.
You mentioned that this procedure is done in 2 stages.
Right.
Can you walk us through what happens during those stages?
Sure. So the first stage, the trial phase, a thin wire, it's called a lead, is placed near the sacral nerves.
Okay.
And those are located near your tailbone. This lead is then connected to a small external device that you wear for a few weeks.
So it's like a temporary pacemaker.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. And so this temporary setup, it sends those gentle electrical impulses to the nerves to see how your body responds. Patients keep a diary of their symptoms and they track any improvements in their bowel control. It really helps determine if S&M is the right fit for them long term.
So you're really an active participant in your own care during that trial period, which I imagine is pretty reassuring.
Absolutely, yeah. It allows both the patient and the medical team to really assess the effectiveness of S&M before moving on to the next stage. And speaking of that next stage, if the trial is successful, if the patient sees a significant reduction in their symptoms, then we move to the permanent implantation.
And that's where the actual device is implanted?
Exactly. The permanent device is about the size of a silver dollar. It's implanted under the skin in the lower back, near those sacral nerves. And this is all done on an outpatient basis, so no need for a long hospital stay.
That's great. Sounds pretty straightforward. Are there any special preparations someone needs to do beforehand?
The doctors at Advanced Urology of Georgia, they'll give you all the specific instructions you'll need. Generally, it's similar to preparing for any minor procedure, so you might have to fast for a certain period of time before the procedure and maybe temporarily stop certain medications.
Okay, so once the device is implanted, are we done then? Is the treatment complete?
Not quite. That's another one of the great thing about S&M. The device is adjustable.
Okay.
So you'll have follow-up appointments, and during those appointments, your doctor can fine-tune the settings, really optimize it for your individual needs.
So it's not about just turning it on and forgetting about it. It's really about tailoring that treatment for maximum effectiveness.
Exactly.
What about recovery time after the implantation?
Most people are back to their normal routines within a few days. Listen to your body, follow your doctor's recommendations, of course.
Makes sense. Speaking of doctors, we keep mentioning Advanced Urology of Georgia. What makes them stand out in the field of S&M?
Well, they're a Medtronic Center of Excellence for this very procedure.
Oh, wow.
Meaning their team has met, really rigorous standards of training and experience in S&M. It shows a real commitment to providing cutting-edge care for patients who are, struggling with things like fecal incontinence. They're truly experts.
So for someone listening who might be dealing with this, what's the first step they should take?
The first step is don't suffer in silence. Talk to your doctor, or even better, schedule a consultation with a specialist at Advanced Urology of Georgia. They can assess your situation, determine what's causing the incontinence, and then recommend the best treatment approach for you. It might be something as simple as lifestyle changes, or it could involve, exploring options like S&M. But the important thing is to reach out and get the help that you need.
That's a powerful message. You need to feel embarrassed or ashamed. This is a medical condition and there are solutions out there. You don't have to let it control your life.
That's right. You really don't. With the right support, the right guidance, you can take control of your health, regain your quality of life.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the technical aspects of S&M, but I'm curious about the human side. Have you seen firsthand the impact that this treatment has had on patients?
The transformations I've seen, it's inspiring, really. Patients who were, once withdrawn, hesitant to even leave their homes because of this condition. After S&M, they regain their confidence, their freedom. They can do things they enjoy again, like participate in social activities, travel, just enjoy life.
Wow.
It's amazing to see how this treatment can really give people their lives back.
Yeah, it's a reminder that, behind the science and the technology, there are real people whose lives are being touched by this.
Absolutely. It's about restoring dignity, improving quality of life, and, empowering people to live without limitations.
It's amazing to think that something seemingly as simple as a small implant can have such a big impact on someone's life.
The human body is incredible, isn't it? And when we find ways to support its natural functions, the results can be, transformative.
Well said. So as we wrap up part 2 of our deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember about S&M?
S&M offers hope. It offers hope for a better quality of life for people who are struggling with fecal incontinence. It's safe, it's effective, it's minimally invasive, and it can help you regain control and really live life to the fullest. If you are considering this treatment, Advanced Urology of Georgia has the expertise and experience to guide you.
That's a great point to remember as we move into the final part of our deep dive into S&M. We'll explore what the future holds for this treatment and what it might mean for you or someone you know. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive on fecal incontinence and this really incredible treatment, sacral neuromodulation.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey exploring the ins and outs. We've covered the science, the impact on people's lives, and even the expertise at Advanced Urology of Georgia.
For sure. Now, looking ahead, I'm curious, what's next for S&M? Any exciting advancements on the horizon?
Oh, absolutely. The future of S&M is incredibly promising. Researchers are always working to refine the technology, make it even more effective and personalized.
That's exciting. Can you give us a peek into what these refinements might look like? What are researchers focusing on?
One really cool area is the development of what we call closed-loop systems.
Okay.
Imagine a device that not only stimulates the nerves, but also senses the body's responses and then adjusts the stimulation in real time.
Wow. It's like a smart little computer constantly fine-tuning things.
Exactly. It takes that personalized approach to a whole new level, and it could lead to even better outcomes and, fewer adjustments over time.
That's amazing. Any other advancements in the pipeline that have you excited?
Another area with huge potential is integrating artificial intelligence, or AI, into S&M. Imagine a system that learns from each patient, identifying patterns, predicting their needs.
So AI could basically make the treatment even more tailored and effective.
Exactly. It's all about using technology to create the most personalized and effective treatment plan possible.
It sounds like the future of S&M is really bright, but while we wait for these advancements to become a reality, what's the most important message for someone dealing with fecal incontinence today?
Take that first step.
Yeah,
Don't let embarrassment or fear hold you back. Reach out to a specialist, like those at Advanced Urology of Georgia. They're experts in this. They can help you explore all your options, including S&M.
so important. There's help out there. You don't have to suffer in silence.
Absolutely. You deserve a life free from those limitations. And with the right support and guidance, you can achieve that.
Well said. So we've covered a lot in this deep dive, from the causes and symptoms of fecal incontinence to those cutting-edge treatments like S&M. What are your final thoughts for our listeners as we wrap up?
I hope our listeners leave feeling empowered, feeling hopeful. This is a common condition, it's treatable, and with the right support, the right guidance, and these incredible treatments like S&M, you can regain control and live a full life. So don't hesitate to seek help from experts like the team at Advanced Urology of Georgia. They're there to help.
A perfect note to end on. Hope, empowerment, and remembering you're not alone in this. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on the deep dive. Remember, knowledge is power, and you now have the knowledge to take control of your health and your life. If you happen to be in Georgia, you can always check out Advanced Urology Institute of Georgia. They've got 10 convenient locations throughout Metro Atlanta. You can make an appointment by calling 678-344-8900 or go online to www.advancedurology.com.
Great advice.